All right, welcome everybody and good morning. Happy Monday. Before we begin this morning's webinar, Pitching for Rural Talent, I would like to acknowledge the Kamilaroi Nation as the traditional custodians of the land on which we stand today. I would also like to pay my respect to both elders, past and present, and I extend that respect to other Aboriginal community members who are present. Behind the scenes, Gunnedah Shire Council has been engaged with the New South Wales Small Business Commission to present New South Wales Small Business Month, March 2022, with the theme Recharge, Rebuild and Renew. Today, we would like to welcome Susan Sims from the Local Jobs Program and Elise Drew, Senior Project Officer from Training Services New South Wales. And we will be unearthing ideas on how to creatively recruit employees for your business in rural New South Wales, explore your options as an employer to position yourself strongly by building and growing your team, finding pathways to funding and contacts for your new employees to thrive and grow in the current trends of employment. So we will welcome Elise and hand over to you right now.
Thank you, Bonnie, and thanks so much for the opportunity to present. As Bonnie said, I'm the Senior Project Officer Skills Broker with Training Services New South Wales. I'm based in Tamworth and I look after the region of New England Northwest. We are currently recruiting another colleague of mine to cover the region with me as well, but I'm it at the moment and I'll be able to share details around my role and what else we can do during this presentation. So Bonnie, if you wouldn't mind, start sharing and then we can walk through if that's good to go.
Awesome, we will. Thank you.
So as Bonnie's bringing up the presentation, I'd like to also acknowledge the lands of the First Nations, Aboriginal people that we're all virtually on today, and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. Okay, so we might go to slide 3. Thank you, Bonnie. So today I thought we'd take some of the key elements of the Recharge, Rebuild and Renew. Some of what I might have to say will resonate with many, and some obviously it may be a different scenario. So hopefully those that join us and watch the webinar later will be able to take something as a key message out. But I'm going to look at the 4 key areas here of how to creatively recruit to employees, build and grow your team, look at some options for pathways to funding, and then basically the last little bit of the presentation will focus on who to contact for what particular service that you might be looking for. Okay, so I guess before we start, we'll just cover a little bit about some of the understanding some of the challenges and some of the issues. And I know Susan will go into a lot more detail, so I won't delve a lot into the data, but just to set the tone. Basically, all the data and all the regional reports that we're seeing tell us that there are more vacancies than there are people to fill them, and that will continue to grow with all the major projects that are happening in our region. And one of the reports that I can see the slide there on the side is that some of the demand for skills workers, they're focusing on managers and professionals, some of the highest occupations that are in demand in our region. One of the many issues that comes with when you have growth is that you're trying to attract people to move to the region. And certainly I've sat in on task force meetings and other meetings which indicate that, every region is struggling to try and attract and retain people in the region. Coupling with that is our ageing workforce, and that's not unique just to our region, it's across the country. So we have an ageing workforce coupled with also people, our young people leaving to work and study elsewhere. It's all compounding the whole issue of we have a shortage of talent, that we use that term in terms of supply and demand. And with that, when you're trying to attract people, we know that there are some infrastructure and housing challenges as well, and childcare and other services that people need when they are looking to move. And I know that that's something that Susan will delve into a bit more. Okay, so now we know the issues. Let's try and look at some of the solutions. So I thought I'd present it in a couple of scenarios, and these are examples of projects that people have worked on in the past to try and address some of their issues from an organisation or an industry perspective. So the first one we're looking at here is a cluster model. So the principles of that is where you might have organisations of varying sizes that might have a similar need. And this could apply to any industry sector. So the idea is that whilst you might not be able to engage a training organisation because they might need a minimum of 10 people, if you're combined with other like-minded organisation, that gives you that bit of a power of being able to sort of engage organisations. So collectively, you might be able to find 10 to undertake a course, and then the RTO might consider coming and delivering that in the region, or there are other opportunities there. But not only from a training perspective, but it can be from a government lobbying perspective. When you have a voice together, you can then, have that additional draw on to be able to get the minister's ear or whatever it might be by combining. And we already have a lot of models that use that, not just the cluster model. That's where you might bring in peak organisations and so forth. That's the same sort of principle. But this can work on a really small scale. And the example that I have, the transport cluster, there is a transport cluster in our region that has 5 companies, all varying sizes, that recognised really early on that they are sharing all the different types of, truck drivers, for example, were jumping from one organisation to the other, all undertaking similar needs, all undertaking orientation and so forth. So they combined forces, and Susan, I know, can speak to this a lot more because she was quite, pivotal in the running of that and coordinating the services there. But overall, even if you didn't want to go to a full cluster model, it might be an opportunity where an employer might say, look, I don't have the capacity to take on an apprentice for 4 years, but if we combine through the group training model, you might be able to share an apprentice and move them around. So again, it's just opening up other opportunities that may not be available if you try to do it on your own. So that's just an option there. Thank you. We might go to the next one. So similar to the cluster model, I've seen now a couple of examples where both from a cafe, restaurant and also a bar, employers have combined forces to also look at a program where they can identify potential recruits, and they go to a job agency and they might say, look, I want to put on, especially for example when there are events like the Country Music Festival where there might be high demand for people in that sector. So they're preparing for that. So they want to be able to train up people. They want to see them in action. A lot of, the feedback we get, people say, look, I've had somebody do a course, but I don't really know if they have the attitude or the aptitude and so forth. So by doing a model like this where you're providing, and it does rely on the employer giving a gift of time. So they do have to actually invest of their own time to make sure that the program is a success. The one example that I recently heard from an employer was taking on a new restaurant, and he wanted to give a 5-day training / experience / let me see what they try before you buy option, and they had a range of young people come in, and they just started a very informal group chat, and you notice that there was one person sitting in a corner that wasn't engaging. Now normally you just bypass them and go, no, move on to the next person. But this employer took the time and, asked this young fellow to come outside, and they had a chat and actually discovered that this person had was on the spectrum, but was so keen and so enthused about being able to get into work. But by investing a little bit of time with them, they were their best recruit. But at the end of the 5-day program, it was almost like a epiphany. They changed their life by offering them, a traineeship option through this hospitality area. So it's sort of like looking beyond what's the obvious. You might have somebody that you just unpack their potential by giving them that little bit of time. The example I've mentioned there, the Mixology Mixer program, is a great program that was a combination of some people who have hospitality needs. They brought all the industry reps together. The students went through a training program where they actually got to learn how to mix drinks and learn how to serve. And then at the last day, the actual industry reps came along, sat down, and they actually were able to see the young people in action. And, great outcomes for the people who stood out because they actually were offered roles afterwards. So it's about trying to think about, well, there are the normal roles of, put out an ad, recruit, and then you bring people on, you test them, and then you go. Where this is really saying upfront, let's put the investment in, provide that program, and then see, you get to see people with their experience upfront. Another good thing is we can take advantage. Currently, the RSA is fully funded for people who don't already hold an RSA. So that's an option that's available right now. Thank you. Okay. So our focus now is building and growing your team. And what I find has been really, really beneficial is if an organisation, regardless of the size of the business, is to start looking at how do you future-proof your business through workforce planning and development. And this allows you, if you're a small operator or a large operator, to identify where do you want your business, or where do you think your business will be in the next 5 to 10 years. Looking at your current workforce, what skills do they have? And then what do you need to go into to build your business? And we know that there will be roles that are currently in place that may not exist in 5 or 10 years. So if you're operating in that space, looking at also how to transition existing workers and build their skills and prepare them for the changes that might come in your industry. And I just want to highlight, for example, our current rate of unemployment is 4.9, and generally anything below, starts into that 4%, it's almost deemed as full employment. So we really need to start thinking about, well, where are we going to get people from? So often you have the solution in your teams, but it's about positioning them and building their skills so that you can future-proof your business. By having a workforce plan, you can also identify succession planning. So you might have some critical roles that you have to say, well, what happens if that person moves, leaves, something happens to them? Who's going to step in and be able to keep your business running? So by having a workforce plan, you identify your critical roles as well as what the skills that are needed in the future. What do you have already, and what areas might decline that you may need to get out of? So there's just a few options there that I've listed. So, okay, thank you. All right, now we're on our third area, which is looking at some different funding. And I work for Training Services, which is a government's department that manages the competitive training market under Smart and Skilled. So that happened, I think, around 2014, that Smart and Skilled came in, and we have registered training organisations, both public and private, that are contracted to deliver a range of full qualifications or part qualifications, which we might know them as skill sets. In response to drought, floods, COVID, and a range of other issues that impacted the economy over the last few years, both the federal and state government have released a bucket of money under the Skilling for Recovery. It might also be known as Job Trainer, to target specific areas that were absolutely impacted by the range of issues that we've all experienced. So that's a separate bucket of money, which I'll speak to in the next slide as well. But also we have ongoing apprenticeships and traineeships and school-based options in those areas. And not to discount that there are also mature age trainees opportunities as well, and particularly those that may have been working in a sector that's been completely impacted, and we saw that in tourism and so forth, and that need to be retrained. So those are genuine options to transition people into new areas. I have put a note there that there are eligibility criteria. It does apply for each of those funding buckets, but primarily, the baseline is they have to be over 15, have left school, and not for the school-based apprenticeship, sorry, for the other two, living and working in New South Wales and Australian citizens and so forth. So there are some eligibility criteria, but people can hop onto our Smart and Skill website to find that out. And if people are interested in apprentices and trainees, we have specialist training advisors. And if they're working with the schools, we also have regional industry education partners. They all belong to training services, so I can sort of put people in touch with that. Thank you, Bonnie. Okay, I just wanted to unpack a little bit because it's quite focused funding that is available this year. Full and part qualifications are available under the Job Trainer Skilling for Recovery funding. There are a list of what qualifications are covered, and the link is there. But also if you go on to, there is a Smart and Skill, if you Google Smart and Skill eligibility, there's a main site that actually allows people to go in and understand if they are eligible. But they are key priority areas that we are promoting right now, and we encourage any industry sectors who are working in this space to take advantage of the funding that's available. So aged care and digital are both federal and state priorities, as well as disability care, childcare. The training and assessment qualification as an opportunity for people who may need those skills that haven't had a TAE before. They're eligible to undertake that. And also we do have in the construction side some key priorities, because there are so many major construction projects that are happening at the moment, both from a state, federal, local government, regional, that we can tap into right now. Great, thank you. That additional page, thank you for Bonnie for providing these details. There are some additional pathways there for grants that may be suitable for employers to have a look at. I won't spend too much time in there, but there is a little bit of an explanation of what it might be for. But if you need anything further, I'm sure we can provide that to you as well. Thank you. Okay, I just wanted to unpack really briefly how you could take advantage of skills brokers, and there are 20 skills brokers like myself positioned across the whole state, so we cover all the regions. And primarily we work with employers or organisations or peak bodies or individuals to identify what training is needed, and then our role is to provide the training organisation details to you, as well as any potential funding. So we would then work behind the scenes, identify, maybe training organisations you're already working with, or there may be others that come into the region that you may not be familiar with. So our role is to connect you. Basically, give you an example. I had an organisation who works in the disability sector. They wanted some training for mental health. I identified who's providing that in our region, and particularly they were looking for online training, and so I was able to provide the details, and they can access that under Smart and Skill funding, which is great. So not only do we do that by connecting employers to training providers and also training funding, that we also work with other government agencies, training organisations, peak bodies, and other employment providers, so that we can help make those connections for people. Thanks, Bonnie. I mentioned earlier that we do have in our team a range of other roles that can help support employers to access either further information, or if you already have a trainee or apprentice on site and you're having issues or difficulties or would like to just have some support, training advisors in our team are the main contacts for mediation and support to help apprentices and trainees to successfully complete. So they're a good option to connect with, and I can certainly put you in touch with the local people who look after the various regional areas. Our regional industry and education partners, their primary role is to connect with schools and look at pathways and programs that will help support students into career options. And there's some fantastic work. The mixology course that I mentioned earlier is a brainchild of one of our REAP officers and working with industry. So their potential is untapped at this point. So they're a great resource to connect with. And I know that Susan and their team in the local jobs program have also accessed our REAP offices and had some connections there. And I mentioned also that we do have other departments in peak bodies. So we try and, through schools brokers, obviously we want to be ahead of what's happening in the regions and what's happening around the country. So we do access a lot of peak body organisations and intel as well. Oh my goodness, I can't believe we're near the end. Here we are. So look, thanks again for the opportunity, and I hope what I shared with you was useful. If you have any questions at all, I'm happy to take some now, but also please reach out to me on the contact details that are available there, and I can also put you in touch with others. So Bonnie, thanks so much for the opportunity, and I will hand that back to you now.
No worries, Elise. Thank you so much. There's lots of really, really good content in there. So if anybody needs any more information on that, they're more than welcome to contact myself at the Economic Department at Gunnedah Shire Council at any stage. If you want any details of funding, government grants, you can also contact me and I can assist you with that. So I think we'll hand over to Susan Sims now. Susan, I'm really excited for this as well. Susan is the Local Jobs Program. So I'll hand over to you now, Susan. I'll bring up your slides.
So good morning, everybody. And hi, I'm based in Gunnedah and I'm working with Rochelle Lay, who's the employment facilitator for our region, the New England Northwest region. I'd like to say a big thank you to Bonnie and to Elise for all your efforts for today, and hello to all of the businesses in the Gunnedah Shire that are listening to our webinar. I also acknowledge the Aboriginal people in our region, the Kamilaroi, and the elders past, present and future, and looking forward to doing lots of work in that area in the coming months. Just to, I guess, declare my bias that I have recently come off the executive of the Gunnedah Chamber. So you will hear me talk about the Gunnedah and District Chamber of Commerce and Industry, but that's a voluntary thing, and today it's about work. So the Local Jobs Program is a federal government funded program. It's the Department of Education, Skills and Employment. And I always describe it as, instead of having a whole heap of people in Canberra to monitor what's happening in employment and how things are going, they've actually put people in 50 regions, so 51 regions. So we have people, our team is based in Armidale, Manila and Gunnedah, and we look after the New England and Northwest, so from Moree up down around the U up to Tenterfield. So the Local Jobs Program supports tailored approaches to accelerate reskilling, upskilling and employment pathways, and its aim is to ensure the maximum number of people are placed in appropriate employment or training as quickly as possible, and it's all about supporting employer needs. And I guess the concept is we bring people together, the expertise, resources and access to funding is brought together at a local level, so there's a lot of conversation about place-based. So that's why I was really excited to have the opportunity to speak to Gunnedah Shire employers and businesses today, because this is something that we can work on locally and get some really good outcomes, I'm sure. Thanks, Bonnie. And in terms of looking at what sort of positions might be needed in Gunnedah and what the vacancies are and what the recent recruitment has been, if I can just say that on LinkedIn at the moment, there's more than 30 jobs being advertised, and they range from aged care through to physios, to you know, mechanics and all kinds of things. So we're very, very aware that there is a good deal of availability of need and vacancies in our businesses today. Thanks, Bonnie. I would just, what I'm going to be speaking about today, this agenda, is to encourage us all to think about employing locals first and using everything that Elise has just told us about, the training, the skilling, the support that's available to take what we have locally and build our own first. Then I'll be talking about supporting your recruitment from outside the region with some strategies. Our outcome from today is to make sure you know that there is support for you and your business and how we can help. I would just say before we change, sorry, Bonnie, I'll just say before we change, or we can leave it on that one, that Narrabri, I know, has 10 major construction projects coming online over the next few years. They are going to be absorbing a lot of employees. Gunnedah is going to need to fight for employees. Going to need to do something a little bit different over the coming years to attract and retain staff, because the competition is real. The competition's not just the coast anymore, or the cities, or major towns, you know, like Tamworth or Wagga or whatever. Narrabri is just up the road, and they are literally looking for thousands of people in the coming years. And as we know, Tamworth is looking to grow to 100,000 people by 2040. So let's really look local now and think about how we can engage our locals. I would just like to acknowledge, as a business owner, that recruiting staff is hard. It is hard. Advertising is expensive, it's time consuming. So please do not think in anything that any of us say today that we're just glossing over. It is hard work. It takes planning. It takes serious effort to attract and retain key staff. So don't do it on your own unless it's the thing you really love doing, because there is lots of help out there. So let's look at, can you employ local first? This is a slide that shows, and the source for this is DESI through the Local Jobs Program. In January 2022, there were 9,700 people on unemployment benefits in the New England and Northwest. And there is some hundreds in Gunnedah. And I guess the major challenge we have there is about 65% of the people who are not working at the moment do not have a Year 12 qualification. So if you are looking for entry-level jobs, there is a lot of people available locally. What is the benefit there? They already live here. They don't have to worry about housing. They've probably got access to transport. They will have a network here, and there's lots and lots of training and support that can happen. So if you have particularly entry-level jobs, and it can be a mature person, it doesn't have to be, we're not just going to punt 17 and 18-year-olds in your general direction. This can be someone who, for various reasons, has been out of the workforce for some time and does not have that initial HSC or similar school qualification. Please let's talk, because they're local, they're established, and there's a lot we can do to help with you. And then you can see there is other vocational education and some tradespeople, and then there's diploma and bachelor degree or higher people who are unemployed at the moment in our region for various reasons. You know, it can just be timing. They may have moved here, their partner may have changed jobs. There's lots of reasons, and so we really want you to think about employing local people first. Thanks, Bonnie. The other thing we've really noticed in the Local Jobs Program is, how are people reaching their talent? So people who are just using Seek, I'm looking at you. Seek is not the be-all and end-all of advertising for jobs. If you have a look at this, how many people are advertising? In January 2022, there were 1,200 new online job advertisements in the New England Northwest region. but a lot of them were for non-trade occupations or the highly skilled ones. So there's so many algorithms, and there's so much the way that Seek works or other online advertising works, even LinkedIn, as I mentioned earlier. So that is not the only way to reach people. People are not necessarily reached through your Seek ad. Are you selling Gunnedah and your business well enough in your ad to attract people who have so much other competition for their talent and skills? You are competing for these people. And does your job ad really show what is going to be the benefit of living and working in the Gunnedah region? So I really need all employers to have a think about that today. So what we're finding in Recruitment Insights across the region, there is an increase in turnover. The Great Resignation, not really seeing it as much as it's purportedly happening in the US, for example, but there's definitely been a wave of people who either could or couldn't work from home over COVID-19, are really questioning why are they living where they're living and why are they working where they're working. There's a good opportunity, we know, for regional employers to attract people. Instead of travelling for an hour and a half, 2 hours each way in Sydney every day, you know, why not live out here and be able to live and work and have that mythical work-life balance? We are definitely hearing from employers that, and Elise covered this earlier, that there's more jobs and there's less people. So certainly we're hearing from employers, you know, I used to put an ad in the paper, I'd get 9 applicants, I'd have to go through them, I'd interview 2 or 3. Some jobs are getting 1 applicant. So something to just, really consider. I mentioned there before, but just putting a job on an online platform is not as effective as it was. You need to have a talent attraction strategy. So we'll talk about that a bit more. I really want you to use your well-developed employer brand and leverage Gunnedah branding. And what I mean by that is, what are your ex-employees saying about you? Are you aware of any things online or just generally where people are commenting that your business is or isn't a good place to work? If it's, if you are not seen as employer of choice, people have choices today. And we will talk about this a little bit more, but recognise that the candidate experience is vital to retention, i.e. if they start work with you, it's got to be a good start. And you really have to put yet more effort into that. Thanks, Bonnie. So how do you recruit? As we've mentioned, we really need all businesses and industries, I'm sure in Gunnedah, are well aware it is a competitive market. It's an employee market. They have options. We've got 1,500 businesses in Gunnedah, more than 5,000 jobs. So there are, even within town, there's opportunities for people to change jobs. I really need you to be clear on the attributes that you're looking for when you are advertising, and make sure that you've thought about your employee. What do you need? What skills, what attributes do they need to have? And be really clear on what you're looking for so that people can feel like they're matching with you. What is your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats? What is your unique selling point for new employees? How are you clearly saying to people who might be considering moving to Gunnedah, a great benefit of working in Gunnedah is our sporting playing fields and how much sport we play, and that you could provide a flexible working experience. You could look at job share or part-time if you can, and this is something that you probably might need to think about now, that there are these needs for maybe job share or part-time or whatever. But again, I guess half thinking about people moving to Gunnedah is for work is a big part of why do you love living and working in Gunnedah. It's something that you need to pass on to your new employees. And how do you induct or onboard your employees, and do you retain them? If you promise them stuff in the job interview, do you actually deliver that? If you say, oh, it's great, you get, Friday afternoons off, we go to keep it, we do this, we do that. Do you? Because if you don't, they're not going to stick, and you can't wonder why. Thanks. I'm really, really strong on this, and this comes from the work that we did at the Chamber about jobs for the trailing spouse. That might be a partner, might be other members of the family. It doesn't have to be. But if you have got a potential employee in your sights, it is well worth the conversation with them to say, and will you be bringing anyone with you? And how can we help you get them a job? This came from a very senior position nearly not being filled in Gunnedah because the spouse could not get work, and yet there was plenty of work. It depends on what you think about Gunnedah Shire and where you live in the Shire and where you come from. Some people say it can be a bit clicky and hard to break through. It's not been my experience, but there's lots and lots of networks to use to break that down. So if you have someone that you are looking to move here, do you know about the skills relocation grant that Elise mentioned earlier? And that is appropriate if they're coming from interstate, so that you can help them defray the costs of moving. Are you using the Gunnedah Shire Council website as a link if you're telling people about Gunnedah? Look at that fabulous logo that Gunnedah Shire Council has, how every individual person brings something to the Shire, and the Shire is open for business. It's really an important way to link people to come here. The Gunnedah Chamber, I really encourage you to reach out to them. If you're looking for a particular person and or you hear you've got someone but they're bringing somebody with them, let's put it out there. We're looking for, sometimes the best jobs are not advertised. So if someone's coming, tell people we're looking for a job for a farrier or a, I don't know, chef or whatever. Let's really work the network. It's lots of people in the town. Just reach out to them. Think about using your alumni to ask for recommendations or referrals. Do you have a referral process? If you need staff, do you pay your staff if they, for example, this is happening in other industries in the region, where if they recommend someone who comes and starts work and works out well, that there's some kind of bonus or monetary or a gift card or something to say, hey, thanks very much for suggesting that Bob comes to work here. I really suggest that you reach out to TAFE a lot or other training providers, whatever your industry needs. Are you engaging after you've engaged with Elise and you've gone through, with the skills brokers about what you need? There's a way to link in to say, this is what I need. Who have you got? So it might be from UNE in Armidale or Charles Sturt or TAFE, that they've got people, and you might be able to catch them on the way through their training program. So just do have a think about that. I wanted to just mention earlier as well, I skipped over it, that Gunnedah has a higher than the state average percentage of volunteers. So again, a part of the living and attractiveness of living in this region is that maybe you have employees, or you're trying to attract employees who want to, look after kids' sport or go to Rotary or volunteer at the show society. So do think about all of those sorts of positive outcomes of living in a regional area that you can offer your employees. And at this time, I'd also add to this screen about the cluster model that Elise mentioned earlier. So are you really, although we do acknowledge it's hard work, I get that, we really do, but are you engaging with other like businesses or in the industry or your neighbours or others to say, right, you know, we really need to work together here. We need 4 or 5 or 8 or 10 new, you know, mechanic trainees, and then we can work together to build something from that. Really encourage you to look at skills brokers and Business Connect to get some help for your business. And I think I'm on to my last slide. So acknowledging again, it's Small Business Month, and well done on getting to today between the drought, the bushfires, the mice plague, the COVID. Oh, it's just been absolute yikes, and the floods in Gunnedah. I really would like to say that we don't just focus on Gunnedah town. There's lots of the villages as well, and in fact the localities. So, you know, again, in terms of accommodation for new people, or the kinds of businesses that you might want to work with that don't have to just be in the town, that can be anywhere in the Shire. So Rochelle's your employment facilitator for the region, as I said, funded by Desi, and I'm one of her 2 support officers, and we would love to work with you anytime to help you get more people in more jobs locally. Thanks, Bonnie.
No worries. Awesome. I will just drop this down. Here we go. There we go. Thank you so much. Louise is still with us. Do you have any questions there, Louise, for Elise or Susan today?
I do. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, absolutely. Go forward. Oh, no, we can't.
Service might be a bit patchy. That's okay. I'll connect. I'll give it a go.
Yep.
Yep. Okay. So we have an occupational therapy and case management service, which is only about 15 months old in Gunnedah. In-house, we're considering designing a new graduate program. So we'd be targeting university students who are studying occupational therapy to come and work with us, and, you know, wanting to create that to be a great experience and for them to stay with us, to stay in the area for quite some time and provide services and ideally make a life in the area. So the thought of outreaching to services like these ladies have just presented has only just dawned on me, which I don't know whether that's, I'm not too sure where that's come from, but anyway, that's good that I've linked in and learnt about what's available. Is that something that you could assist with, in particular with the new graduate program, on how to support that to be successful?
If I could just throw in there, and Elise and Bonnie will follow up, it's Susan. Bonnie, I'm thinking that one of the very useful things would be that council funding. And the name of the program's just escaped me, but council does fund a lot, Louise. You'd be surprised how much they do offer businesses to develop. So that would definitely be something that we could look at. Elise,
yeah,
any
sure.
thoughts
I've definitely
on? Sorry. Elise, any thoughts on the grads options?
Look, I'd really need to look into that, because obviously ours is more vocational education, but I think there's opportunities there that we can at least facilitate discussions. And then we, you know, from that, depending on what is required, Louise, there may be some additional funding that might be available, or it's something absolutely that we can get involved with the discussion and go from there. Do you mind if I just mention it? I'm remiss of me not to mention it during my presentation. There are a couple of other pathways to engage people. The Skilled Migration Program, which is managed in our region by Regional Development Australia. And also there are in some cases, opportunities to engage ex-offenders through an Employment to Pathways program through the corrections. They do have a really strong employment and mentoring program, and they're two key areas that, again, a bit of untapped, perhaps, talent there, but opportunity I wanted to make sure that I got across on the webinar. So thanks for that. And back to you, Louise, if you have any other questions.
No, that's great. I plan to spend 6 to 12 months developing the program before we, offer it to a new graduate. So, yeah, I'll get the practice manager on board and we'll be in touch. And because I'm really keen to do it, but to do it really well and make sure it's a great experience.
And there might be some additional training there, whether it's leadership, development, training and assessment. There may be other things to add on, as an value add to the graduate's journey.
For sure, sounds good. Because I know there's some undergraduates, there's some Gunnedah girls who are at the moment at university studying occupational therapy. There's about 4 or 6 of them at various universities. So there's real opportunity around to do this.
Fabulous. That's great.
Awesome, Louise. Great question. Thank you. So I think if we finished, Elise, are we all good? Susan, we're all good. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Like I said at the beginning, this session is recorded. So if anybody in the community, once it's been edited and made available, if anyone would like this, to contact myself, Bonnie, at Economic Development at Gunnedah Shire Council, and we will have discussions, and I can help you out with any contacts that I have and any grant funding. I think perhaps Susan was alluding maybe to the business partner program. So if you do any employment, employee development, I guess we could discuss that if it falls under the guidelines, which I can also email out to any business owners, community members who are interested in that at any stage. So that's about it. Thank you so much again for joining us, and thanks for all your hard work, Susan and Elise. It was really, really wonderful. Great experience. Thank you.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Everybody.